Okay, well, first of all, hello everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, panelists, for showing up, and thank you, audience members, for coming along. This is the first of a series of events. My name is Laura Kopinski. I'm the CEO of Eve University, and this series of events have been put together with Eve Rookies, who are an MPSI group who focus on new players like we do. So the reason we wanted to put this event on was myself in Eve Uni and also Kushal in Eve Rookies keep hearing time and time again from new players that they don't really understand the Alliance tournament, but when we explain what it is, then they're super excited and they say, wow, that sounds really cool. So what we wanted to do together was try and demystify the Alliance tournament by running this project, which is a series of classes and panels to kind of try and explain things a little bit and make it a little bit more transparent for the new players who would be interested in actually coming along and watching. So this is our first panel. This is behind the scenes. So we are looking for tonight on what goes into making the AT happen, basically. So we've got a lovely group of panelists who have agreed to come along and talk to us. I guess if we just start out with introductions, first of all, if you guys wouldn't mind saying who you are, what's your role in the AT, and yeah, just a bit of an introduction. And then anyone who has any questions, if you can go ahead and post them in the chat channel that's attached to this voice channel, and I will go through and read them out.
I guess I'll start as I'm top and least on my list. I am CCP Zealous. I'm the community developer at CCP Games, obviously for EVE Online. I primarily look after the competitive play in EVE Online, so things such as the Alliance tournament.
I am Thunder Daddy.
Thank you already.
I'm Tread Flame. I'm a small gang PvPer, solo PvPer, as well as a pilot on multiple Alliance tournament teams, depending on what year it is, who I'm flying with. I've also run a team and also hopped in and helped with some of the production, hosting some of the Anger Games last year and helping out with Jintan's Charity Cup as well, and done a few AT commentaries as well.
I am Kevin Grunler. This year, I worked as a guest analyst and commentary for the Alliance tournament proper on the stream. In addition to that, I also have been running the Eve Rookies training team, which allowed anyone to get into it, and that's been a great success, honestly.
Yep. My name is Mystical Knight. I'm one of the XX of Fraternity, but I've been involved in the Alliance tournament with teams like the We Form Volta team and the Hydra team. Now I'm just one of the many talking heads that we have on desk and on camera talking about different matches and breaking things down so that people have a better chance of understanding what's happening in the matches and what they can do to potentially improve if they're actually participating.
My name's Ollie, or RJ, and I've been involved with Alliance tournament for quite some time now. I was trying to think of a year, but it's been too long now. I can't put anything right. I've worked in all sorts of different roles. I've done everything from commentary to analyst desk to producer to directing to being the tech person to a lot of different roles basically over the years. And this year and last year, I'm going to be doing observing directing. So I'm coordinating in-game camera people, which is a role that I've settled into. Actually, I really enjoy. So I've done all sorts of different things. I even wrote the rules one year. I'm not going to tell you which.
And I have one on LCC, right? IGP RJ. Hi everyone, I'm Gaza. I was Alliance Tournament commentator for Alliance Tournament 16 through 19. I've taken a couple of years hiatus the last couple of years to captain my own team, including this year. So yeah.
Okay, fab. That's great. So we've got a handle on who we actually have. So first of all, let's kick us off with a nice easy question to start. So what does a typical tournament weekend look like for each of you?
stress.
Nice. I can begin. Okay, well, we've got stress. I was going to say long days and then karaoke in the evenings to stress Ellis out a little bit by blowing out our voices in between streams.
I love this summary. I mean, he's not entirely wrong. How many final countdowns was it last year? 7?
Yeah, we recorded
What
a rendition of
what happens at the 80th party?
Well, we wanted it on stream, but copyright, something about having to get license for the music and that kind of stuff.
I think it's matter of stress a little bit on a kind of slightly serious point. The actual weekends, 80 weekend itself, a lot goes into preparation. So when we get to the actual weekend itself, it tends to be pretty straightforward. There should be a plan, but all the analysts and commentators have been doing a lot of preparation by making notes and researching teams, getting warmed up by joining their relative alliance scrims, and getting some inside information, gossiping with each other. Obviously, that happens quite a lot behind the scenes, just to try and get some interesting stories to tell on stream, etc. So there's a lot of preparation that goes in by those guys. Thunder Daddy does. I don't think he really stops preparing from the time that the Alliance tournament actually finishes. So a week and a day's time, he'll be preparing for the next one already. From my point of view, kind of tends to be lean towards more of the tech side these days. We'll be sort of setting up graphics and processes for weeks beforehand. And then it will actually start our preparation sort of proper in terms of plugging cables in. Is going to start, I think, Monday, Tuesday this week. And so when it actually comes to broadcast weekend itself, we kind of rock up a couple of hours for the broadcast with everything beautifully, perfectly prepared, ready to go. And it's a relaxed experience because we all know what we're doing. It's going to lose a lot of nerves on the first day, I think. I speak for myself anyway, because all that you're worried all that preparation is actually going to be result in something that is excellent for the viewers to enjoy. But usually once it's underway, it's a good vibe. We're as nerdy, as excited about Alliance Tournament as anyone watching. So we're excited to be there and take part.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of it's just lots and lots of preparation. When you consider matches basically roughly about 20 minutes from the previous match to the next one, it's very, very structured. It's a lot of other competitive play events. When you go out there, you end up hearing like hour-long delays and stuff like that. We just try and keep as best we can to a schedule to try and respect everybody's time as best we can. So it is always a case of trying to as best we can. We don't always get it right, but we endeavor to try as hard as we can to make sure it is right. But again, as RJ says, on the lead up to the tournament, there's just always a lot of preparation. It's at least on myself. It's also looking through like lots of data from the previous tournaments. What I want to do for the next rule set, figure out who the next sponsors are going to be in the tournaments, which is then going to dictate things like points, or if I'm going to change the format and the rulings in particular to make it themed around that particular group. And then there's also just internally, it's raising a little bit of awareness as well in terms of like, hey, we're running another tournament. It would be great to get your help. And producing things like the unique Alliance Tournament skins we see every year and unique Alliance Tournament ships we see each year as well. The preparation, as quite rightly say, never ends. As much as one tournament ends, there's always something else on the horizon, whether it be the next Alliance Tournament, another community tournament. That's it.
From a commentator perspective, I've found the Alliance Tournament weekends to be pretty not relaxing. I mean, it's nerve-wracking when you start doing it, but Bay and all the other supporting staff make it, from my experience, make it super easy and for the most part pretty smooth. Our jobs are the easiest on the day of just walking up and talking, yapping some absolute shit. Or at least hopefully sometimes trying to be correct, isn't that right, Misty?
Sometimes.
But yeah, it's nerve-wracking to start as a commentator. But once you sort of get into the groove of it and start to enjoy it, it's good fun. And as a participant, it's the exact opposite. It's just stress nonstop. You've spent so much time preparing your scrims, your strategies, you don't know exactly what the opponent's going to do. Have you got blind spots? Are you fully ready for everything that could happen, that will happen, and you actually play it out, and all the time you've put in is distilled down into one 10-minute window where you've got to perform, and if you don't perform, that's it. So it's polar opposite of stress for me, but still also fun.
Yeah, from a commentary and analyst perspective, from just like the guest side of things, I think it's not awful, especially since I can do it from the comfort of my own room and stuff like that. All I gotta do is push all of the difficult technical stuff onto RJ, and just like make sure that I have a working microphone or a working camera, and he'll fix anything else that's in between those two.
Yeah, but on that note, it was kind of interesting. My first few times hopping in to do commentary and like desk work, there's the nerves you get from like something new's happening. You don't want to look like a fool on camera. And like some of the best advice I got was just say simple things that make sense. And I may or may not have downed a bottle of wine to get the nerves to go away, but you realize that it's so structured that you walk in there, it's kind of hard to screw up. You just have to listen to the people who have been there and follow their lead until you're comfortable enough to step into the space, with a strong, opinion and idea of what you think's going on. And half the time you're right, because you know how to play the game and you've been out here and seen it. And you just got to get comfortable until you hit that next experience that's you waiting for 40 minutes trying to fill with no idea how to fill for 40 minutes.
And I think just a final point from me on that is, when you're there in person, at least, I know that oftentimes, even when you're not on camera, you may just be sitting in kind of like the kitchen area, watching on a bigger screen. You'll be discussing amongst yourselves kind of what's happening or what your expectations are for a particular match. And you'll often share bits of feedback as well. If someone just comes off from commentating or being on the desk, you'll be like, oh yeah, that was really good, or you can play into this a bit more. Or, if they're feeling a bit shaky on something, they'll be able to ask for feedback and for tips on how to better address. Sometimes it's nerves. Sometimes it's about, how to just refer to something in a way that makes sense and is easy for someone to digest. So there's a lot of positive kind of feedback circles that go on in the background to make sure that everybody is also comfortable with the role that they have.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Moving on, let's hear some of your stories. Best stories, funny moments, memorable stuff from previous 80s.
Too many.
I was going to say my little one from last Alliance tournament, when we were going through the ban phases, it was kind of matching my general sanity across the level of the tournament as well, where every time a Zarmas got banned, I came up with various different named combinations. So I had the Zarmazard, the Zarmazan cheese, so on and so forth. It was great fun. But like, it was also just one of those moments of like, what? But I just enjoyed it, and it seemed that everybody that was watching was like enjoying it as well.
I got a couple funny ones as a player. Just one of them was landing on grid and seeing 4 Deimoses in your first ever like AT match that you're running a team. And it's just something you don't ever practice against and something you never expect to see. And you just land, and you're like, what do I do here? I don't know what's going on. And then I will say, from like the commentating perspective, like some of the great moments I've like remembered is just sitting down with like a lot of other commentators and hearing their stories. And just like the amount of storytelling that goes on in the background. It's not just us getting together to put on like a show. There's people who sit in these channels and just talk for like an hour after everything's done, an hour before, and like watching Zell screw around with some of the system effects and adding, speed clouds in and us flying around in that together is always a fun show.
The best moment for me was probably watching my team get top 6 in 18-19 when I was in the studio. Sort of played with them the first weekend and casted a little bit from home and secured top 12, and then went into the studio and had to watch them play, and was jumping for joy actually on the stream when I saw them get top 6, which was probably the best match of the tournament in my humble and unbiased opinion. yeah, let's not talk about what happened after, because that puts a negative spin on the story. But that was my best experience, I think, for sure. I'm hoping to top it this year.
You can talk about what happened before. I think was that the year when so we were producing the toilet at the university that I work at, and I hadn't really used the room that Basil was. We set Basil up in a separate little meeting room, and we logged him into one of the PCs there, and IT installed Viva on it for us. Cool, great. And then was it just literally during a match? The computer just forced to like no, it got is it 8 p.m.? I think all of these student computers are programmed to automatically shut down at 8 p.m. as a power saving thing. And we couldn't overrate it. So fans was there mid-match, like, Bay, what do I do to come here? I think it was one of those things where it came up with a timer of like, computer will shut down in 2 minutes. I'm like, what the hell do I do? I didn't have to do this. The number of technical issues I've had to solve like that are just never ending. It's part of the job, and it's part of having to deal with it. Yeah, but like having the
right. I remember this year when I was on with Wingnut going into our like segment together. She had put into the chat like, "Oh, hey, there's a storm going on right now." Oh, like, oh, okay. That was just like in the back of my head, and like I don't remember whose match it was, but near the beginning, we had both done our intros and the match had just about started, and I like said my piece and like waited 3 seconds and we didn't say anything, and I instantly knew he's gone and I need to fill now forever. And then I just kept going for a while and hoped that something on the back end would change to get someone else next to me again. And then I paused for a second and someone else spoke and it was perfect. No one noticed.
Yeah, I think a couple funny things for me. I like the memes that kind of spawn from the Alliance tournament, whether it's something that's said on the desk or something that someone says during commentary, and then we kind of carry it on throughout. Annoying, well, not so much annoying as making Zealous cringe with some of the names that we come up with for comps as well. There's also always an exciting time, like Gun Rush being condensed down, for example, that kind of thing. Great times. And I guess kind of behind the scenes is, you guys obviously won't know this so much, but when we have the headsets on, like we'll be doing sound tests and checks prior to the stream to make sure that everything sounds good. And we kind of developed a little culture, I suppose, or ritual of just saying hello to the sound guy whenever we put the headphones on. Usually in like a very seductive voice, just to really wind him up, you know.
You weren't in the room to see his face when you did it either.
No.
Yeah, I've got another. Sorry, go.
No, go on. You first.
Can I screen share it here? That's something
Should be able to, yeah.
That's a good question.
You just provide in terms of memes and stuff. I've got a little video. Let's have a quick look. Look at this one. Should be able to see that. So this was a little classic. So, just for I'm not a representative of CSP, and I do not condone use of growth. Some of you guys might know Jin San, maybe newer players. I haven't heard of him, but he did a tournament last year, so hopefully people are still familiar with Jin. And he was a young man, shall I say, when he started commentating for us. He just turned like 18 or something like that. Yeah, he had this glorious suit made of, with weed leaves on it. And so we kind of like made a little meme, and this is what it looked like. This is what it looked like I was streamed, so we kind of like filled the studio with smoke.
Yeah, but the rest of this, I can't. I don't know if anyone else can.
Oh, you can't get the audio.
No.
How do I share like the actual audio here?
While he's sorting it, though,
Yeah.
the story surrounding that was amazing as well, because they realized as the segment was going on that there was a smoke detector in the studio. And they realized after the smoke had been delivered that there was a smoke detector in the studio. So one of the other staff was off the side with a big fan trying to fan the smoke away from the smoke detector. In a panic that the smoke alarms were going to go off and it was going to start and spray the studio with something.
This is a video of that happening. Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
Yes.
The way we did the smoke, you can see Raiden on the right. He just had his vape. Big inhale. Vape. We didn't even have a smoke machine in that TV studio.
I think he was the smoke machine.
There's a youngster Tony there as well. You can see the fire alarm was right above it.
He managed to pick the worst possible seat for it.
That was spicy, yeah. So yeah. Yeah, that was a fun day. A lot of the time we do just kind of make memes up on the spot. People think that kind of we plan stuff out, but it often just is a spark of creativity by the production team, or the host says something that's funny and everyone responds to it, and so we just kind of roll with that and respond to it as a production crew. And I think those are my favorite moments as production team, when we just kind of responding to the community as well in Twitch chat. Like, we do read Twitch chat quite a lot. Don't tell them I said that. But we do read Twitch chat a lot and respond to things, the overall sentiment, particularly if they're positive, and the memes and tricks there. We try to weave those back into the broadcast for sure.
I'll say, Bay, someone's asking for recordings of the sound guy checks. Every single time we go on and say hello, sound guy, if you have any of those.
I don't have those. No, sadly not.
I tried, Spanky. I'm sorry. I tried.
We have recorded like the sound check stuff in the past, but it's usually a little bit too fruity to share, because that is often a time that, like, particularly on day one, like because that's usually generally when you're doing most of the sound checks, is day one, just to make sure everything sounds great, because once the settings are set, you don't tend to need to for the other days. But yeah, when we are sound checking on day one, often the talent are just kind of venting their stress, and so they do make slightly edgier jokes than they would on broadcast, or kind of take the mickey out of teams in such a way that maybe wouldn't be perceived as unbiased, I guess. So we don't tend to record sound checks as a rule, just because we want the talent to feel comfortable and not worry about their saying.
Love that. Perhaps to expand on that, are there any other things that most players don't realize is happening behind the scenes that you can share with us?
I've got another little video I could share of my point of view when I'm observing directing, I guess. It's quite long, but I could just give you a little flavor of it at the beginning. That's interesting. I think most people don't. We get a lot of comments about the camera work of the in-game camera work, right? Not the camera work of the humans talking, but the actual in-game camera work. It's something I've worked on over the years, and I think we're getting better at it. There's still a lot of ideas I've got to develop it, but back in the day, we tended to just have one person just logged into the game, spinning a camera around. Whereas trying to evolve it a little bit more this year, or last few years, we've had multiple in-game camera operators that we then cut between and try and maintain a narrative of. And I think most people don't realize that is actually quite a lot of work, and it doesn't just sort of happen by magic. And when I say people, like observer to people as a role, they don't know what that is. So the observer role in what we do, or it's kind of a term used for esports in general, is the role of the person who's capturing the action inside the game. Much like if you went to a football or an NFL game, you'll see like 20, 30 cameras around the edge of the pitch with those people, but for video games. So we're inside around the edge of the arena, or in our case, we can actually get right amongst the action, obviously, because it's digital space. And so I've got a little video here of a point of view of me directing last year, just so you can see how it's looking. Let me share this.
Could be interesting to have, if a camera gets too close to an explosion, the camera cuts out instantly.
Yeah, it's quite tricky to get the balance right between older bit of vet players. They want a nice wide zoomed out view so they can see all of the ships and they can analyze the whole kind of like movement of everything on grid, because they can kind of fill in the gaps in their brains in terms of what the spaceships look like and stuff. So they're less interested in that, and they're more interested in the whole arena, like the tactical situation, the whole arena. Whereas newer viewers tend to like looking at this beautiful artwork that CCP's created of these lovely spaceships and the explosions. And so it's kind of a balance between getting that and also trying to make sure that we're capturing the action of any interesting plays. We don't want to be off camera when someone does a really cool MJD play, for example. We want to make sure we're capturing that. So it's a tricky thing, and we're still developing techniques and stuff to capture it. But here's a little bit of footage from last year. Can you hear the audio?
Yes.
So there's a little point of view of last year we had myself directing CCPB, GM and HP Arcade. My brain went blank then. So each of these observers is taking a different role. CCP Arcade was kind of doing the zoomed out shot. So he's kind of like gently spinning the camera around the arena. And then GM Ren is he was really fantastic at doing the action shots, getting up close and quickly switching to ships and getting zoomed in close-up shots. And then B, as someone who's an excellent FC himself, and really good at understanding kind of like the tactical situation, he was kind of zooming in more on kind of like the interesting plays that are going on. So yeah. And then my job is just to cut between those guys. It's very easy. I get to actually just enjoy watching the Alliance tournament and coordinating the camera works. And sometimes I call for shots they want, and then sometimes I just kind of let the observers do their thing, and then just cut between them depending on what's going on. Particularly remember the last year was finals. It was so exciting. Like it was a really, really good set of finals, and we were all like really like hyped and on tenterhooks as well. I think we got told to shut up by production quite a lot because we were excitedly shouting at each other instructions, and you could actually hear them on the microphones outside. So, but yeah, that's something it's really fun to do. Cool.
I think to sort of add on to Bay's point as well, is like you were saying about how the observers get a lot of criticism. Some people want to see the wide angles, some people want to see the close angles, but it is not only like a thankless role in some extent, but it's also quite involved, right? Like these people have to sit here and intentionally watch the matches. Like everyone at home gets to sit there and just sort of relax and watch the matches. You can tune out sometimes, you can go make a cup of tea or whatever. But these guys who are sitting here have to intentionally focus on different aspects of the matches, and it can be I imagine it's quite difficult to focus for an extended period of time and say, okay, my job is to sort of ignore everything else. I'm just going to watch it, this one ship in this match and see what happens with this guy and sort of try and zone everything else out. These guys love the Alliance tournament as well. I'm sure they just want to chill out and watch the matches too, but they've got to be more intentional with for spectating.
Yeah, it takes a surprising amount of concentration. But this particularly like the wide shot that Arcade's doing. Like he has to do a slow panning shot, like it's one single continuous shot for 10 minutes. So I can always cut back to that because he's my get out guy. Like if the other shots suddenly go a bit wavy or whatever, I can quickly cut back to the wide shot. And like keeping one continuous camera angle in here for 10 minutes without like messing up, it actually takes quite a lot of concentration, even though the results don't look particularly spectacular. It actually takes quite a lot of concentration to do that. So yeah, it's quite a focused job. My dream is to have like one observer for every single ship on grid and have like a giant multi-view with like 20 inputs that I can control. But when CCP gives me £1 million budget, I'll do that. But until then, we'll have to do it 3. But this year, it was the first year that we've opened up applications to people to come and volunteer to join CCP tiers. Typically, it's done by CCP staff who live in Iceland. They're easy to get into the office and get hold of. This year, we've got 2 player volunteer observers coming over to supplement the crew. So it is something that, fingers crossed, CCP will offer again. So if it's a role that you're interested in and you feel like you've got the ability to get even better camera angles than the ones you see on the stream at the moment, by all means, keep out an eye out for an application for that in future, or drop me DM and say you'd be interested to do it. I'm always looking for people to help do it. I tend to often end up having to drag my friends in to do it because it's not something that people are excited about doing. But so yeah, get in touch if you're interested in doing that.
It's a challenging skill to also like properly use a 3D mouse, which is one of the we end up using in the tournament for this specific work, where you essentially can detach the mouse from your regular camera and then you can just move it around. The advantage of a 3D mouse is it understands like up and down essentially, as well as like forwards and backwards. So it's also a case of like you can flow it in all sorts of different directions as you're kind of watching one of those matches. And as RJ says, it's just more of the trying to maintain that focus across the very long day that the Alliance tournament is happening. By the time you get to the end of the day, you're just very mentally drained because the amount of concentration that's required. I think that's also one of the things just worth highlighting is the fact that it is live. There is no delay. Everything you see is, well, with the exception of the like time to transmit delay kind of usual thing. It is all live. It's all happening as you see it. And one of the other things, like talking about it from the other side of things, is the ref perspective, which is the kind of the setting up element for every match as well. There's normally, because of the kind of general cadence of the match, there's usually 2 or 3 matches that are being prepared whilst there's a match going on as well, where the referees behind the scenes are talking to the captains for each one of the next up teams, and they'll be going through making sure they do a check. We have a tournament tool behind the scenes that lets you look at essentially a fleet and see the fleet and making sure that they should be obeying the rules, but just making sure that they haven't like put in some Tech 2 drones when they shouldn't have, for example, or they've got boosters running, or we're just trying to make sure that they're actually complying with the rules. Ultimately, it's down to the team to not break the rules. If they're found breaking the rules, then obviously the referees will end up rather than punishments they feel. But it's also a case of we try and do our best to make sure that those rules aren't broken accidentally. It's just a lot of prep before the matches. So again, it's always a case of like we run those checks. Then they're moved into the system, which is the tournament system. Then they're given a bit of time to warp to the beacon, and then they're essentially held there until the desk segment, or realistically, the matches happen when they're ready to go. Like we always set the timetable to the specific matches, and ultimately it's down to the desk to wrap up talking in time for them to go to the arena. Sometimes it doesn't have to give it a little bit of a poke because they get really excited and they start talking about a particular segment a little bit. So they're occasionally also just giving a little bit of a nudge just to say, hey, yeah, you need to wrap things up. We have a little like timer that's set up that something you may have seen glimpses of sometimes on the desk, where we actually have like hey, look, this is 10 minutes long, and then they'll have a countdown of 10 minutes, just knowing that they have that time to talk about the match while the previous match is being set up. And we just have the ability behind the scenes to like add or take away. So for example, all the players are supposed to walk to an arena beacon. On occasion, somebody will just walk to the sun. It happens, but it's also cases of we have to fix it before the match starts. And if we decide that they've done it like too many times and they're doing it deliberately now, then they may incur an additional penalty. But it's then getting that person into the correct position, which invariably ends up being a 0, because if the 2 teams are on the grid and they have the knowledge of like what ships are there, the only fair way is that we put the person at 0, because it's just the penalty that's going to end up being incurred for that punishment. But yeah, there's a lot of, as again, behind the scenes setup from the referees as well, trying to keep people calm. Sometimes if they're newer teams, they can get a little excited. Or they could also, I think we've delivered a rousing speech previously as well to try and rally people. the captain asked us to come up with something en route so he could relay it to the team, just to try and give them a little bit of a like pep talk before the start of the match. But yeah, there's a lot of prep behind the scenes as well for each individual. As I say, having multiple matches in the pipe ready to go is also part and parcel of the pre-match element.
I do think we have a wingnut with us now.
Well, yeah, about half of a wingnut right now. It's this wingnut's currently got COVID.
Oh no!
I have been obliterated for a week. Let's go. But hey, now I sound either sexy or insane. One of the two.
You sound really
Why
different.
not both?
Got a new mic as well.
Nope, same mug. I'm just dying.
I think it works for you. I think you should do the.
Yeah, you sound good with that, honestly.
I'll just go puncture my lungs at least once. So should fix the problem. Should be good to go.
So, Wingnut, do you want to explain who you are, what you do for the audience?
Yeah, sure, why not? I'm an ex-solo PvP streamer. I've been doing solo PvP for years. I then was about to actually quit Eve, and then COVID hit, which is kind of ironic right now. And that kind of got me back into commentating Eve instead of playing it. And I was like, hey, I don't have to be bitter about this. I can just do this. And then just got lucky. And for people like Zealous and Misty, those guys like that, and Bay, I wouldn't be here. But once I got my start, it's just been smooth sailing. It's been 5 years of beauty.
Don't know why you're crediting us. It was all Dronic's. You know that.
Yeah, but he's not here. So. I can kiss your ass. I can't kiss his.
Okay, so another question for you guys. How has the Alliance tournament changed over the years? Where do you see it going in the future?
I think that's a question I have a very, very lot to, but I'll let everybody else potentially chip in first because I'm curious to hear them.
I think, based on what the AT was like prior to it coming back, kind of like post, kind of during COVID, I think that the general quality of the streams and the production has increased year on year. It's kind of, I think everyone strives to try and improve the tournament and to work in some of the feedback that we may get each year to make sure that the viewing experience itself, like the camera work that Bay was talking about earlier, is all kind of as good as it can be to make as many people as possible happy. You're not going to make everyone happy. You know, you're always going to have the people that want to sit there with the stream muted, or the people that complain about the camera angles because they can't see the hard point on a ship properly or something like that, right? There's always going to be those kind of people. But I think in general, the quality of the streams has improved each year. And I think the digestibility of the streams as well, with the number of different graphics that have been produced to help people understand the basics of the tournament. I think the general style of the commentators and the analysts each year has also been very conducive to newer players having a better understanding about the tournament and also being encouraged to get involved. I don't think we've necessarily flamed teams for being teams so much as we may have done in previous tournaments. Apart from one or two. But generally, the feedback that we give is, hey, these guys kind of fucked up. Sure, like, here's a mistake that this person made and this potentially cost them the match. But we will give them the points that they need to improve on that particular point. And we will encourage those newer teams to come back because it is a fun experience and we don't want to scare people away from participating in the tournament through fear that they are going to be flamed in front of however many thousand people on stream for playing and taking part, right? So I think in general, the vibe when it comes to trying to encourage new players to get involved both through the educational aspect of the stream and how we treat those teams has probably improved a little bit. Some of the veteran teams that used to buy their way into the tournament and then crash out, yeah, that's probably why Bay was going, right? You might be a little bit harder on them, but in general, I think that's been one of the improvements. And there's always different improvements that we can try and make year on year. I know that replays were one of the things I've been hopping on to Zealous and TCP about year on year. It's as it becomes technologically possible without too much difficulty or cost, we can factor these things in to continue to improve the viewing and commentary performance.
I have a good bounce off of Misty on that. I think a big thing, like talking about the future of the AT, and Zealous really does a good job with this, is keeping it balanced, and competitive for those teams that really strive for a competitive environment, while also allowing new teams to have chances, writing rules to allow them to be competitive and work their way up the ladder while having fun, and playing at the level they want to play. And also from like a commentary standpoint and a background standpoint, keeping it like refreshing, like commentary now isn't just blasting people or keeping it at a level where, only top gamers can understand it, but like including a way for everyone to be able to understand what's going on, to feel like they can be involved in some way and, push the scene towards everyone in the EVE community in some capacity, for PvP, and just make it relatable for everybody and, kind of draw people to the scene. It is a great scene to be in. It's something different than the rest of EVE. And the more people we can get involved, the better. And that's where I think the future of the tournament is really like coming through right now.
And just to add on to that really quickly, sorry for anyone else that wants to add anything. I think also having new people getting involved on the talent front as well has also been very nice. I've met some incredible people through doing the commentary stuff for the Alliance tournament, who I would not probably have met otherwise. And seeing them bring their fresh opinions and takes on different parts of the tournament, and how to approach the tournament, their different theory crafting as well, all works to keep, I think, the tournament fairly interesting, and accessible for everyone as well. So
yeah, it's changed a lot over the years. And the CCP have tried a lot of different things as well. It's very cool. It's one of the longest running. So I teach broadcast production for esports, and obviously like have quite a wide range of knowledge when it comes to esports production and kind of video game content production online. And I think Alliance Tournament is the longest running tournament I can think of in terms of like it coming back year after year after year after year. I mean, obviously there's games that have been around longer, but as a tournament, as a sort of like odyssey, I guess, of content that's been going along in terms of video games. And so it's a really fascinating case study for how content has evolved over the years as well. And you kind of like, you go right back to the video. I'll just link to a video in chat, which you can check out. And it's kind of like surprisingly good in terms of the content and the quality, to be honest. Even though CCP did 0 tools at the time for running tournaments, they were kind of like making it up as they went along. And so there was that kind of era there where they were kind of like figuring it out what sort of product they wanted it to be. And then you get to like the 80 sort of like 7 through 9 sort of, no, 7 through 10, I think was their kind of like, I think that's when CCP invested the most in production in terms of like organizing behind the scenes. They developed these, they put programming time in to develop the tools that we still use now. And they put quite a lot of money into fairly polished production, quite a shiny TV studio, like built out desks and sets and stuff like that. And that cost them an incredible amount of money. But unfortunately, they didn't really see a return on it to the numbers because, of course, CCP, I'm not speaking for CCP here, I'm just speaking of my experience of working with them. It's hard, it's turned in morphed into a community event, but back then they were trying to use it more typically as what most developers use esports for, and competitive tournaments of their community around for, which is promoting the game, right? And so the theory is you invest a bunch of money into this event, which generates eyeballs online, and that brings in more people and more players, and hence more revenue. EVE Online being a sort of small player base, and the tournament community in particular being a kind of like a subsection of a small player base makes it very niche. While the kind of like interest can be generated by Alliance tournament to reach a wider audience, and sometimes if it ends up on the front page of Twitch and you get a lot of random people coming and going, what the hell is this? It's hard to translate that into revenue for CCP. So then you've kind of like transitioned into a new era now, where CCP see it very much, I think, as a product that is really good at retaining players and keeping older players around. I think these guys can probably speak to this. I think there's a large proportion of the player base these days that just comes back to EVE every year and resubscribes and gets engaged for a few months every year just for Alliance Tournament, because that's kind of part of the game that they've really fallen in love with. And I think CBC really sees value in that these days. And so the kind of like the sort of vibe of the broadcast again has changed, sort of like to be very much a community team led project, and they do that amazingly. I was looking forward to CCP. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think CCP are doing a fantastic job of kind of like sort of giving the players what they want, whilst also it being a really good product to represent their company and make it interesting. And in terms of the future, I personally would love to bring in kind of like I would love if CCP bring a kind of made the tournaments more regular and made it kind of like a sort of part of the game that people could just play all year round if they were kind of interested in tournaments.
Sign me up.
And they just did all year round, as opposed to it being something they just checked in for 3 or 4 months a year for. And I think that would, if there was space to actually, I know currently a lot of that tournament sort of extra, we only get one weekend of tournaments on TQ, I think. Is it just one? Well, this year it's just one weekend, and the rest of the year it's all on Thunderdome. I would love to see CCP find ways of bringing it onto TQ. Not necessarily, I'm not talking about instance content for everyone. I'm just talking about more kind of like CCP run red tournaments. I think it would be really cool to have and encourage, so CCP could get some return in terms of revenue. I am waffling now. Please stop me if I'm going too long. But I would personally love to see, in terms of the future, just more regular tournaments run by CCP to keep that player interest all year round.
You hit some really interesting points across that as well, because I mean, when I'm looking at these tournaments every year, it is actually a very careful balance between understanding what like CCP like, what the player base would like, what's a good viewing experience, and then what's a good playing experience as well. So there's like a lot of like things that need to be balanced out, and it's generally actually very difficult to try and like make one of those like greater without making one of the others like lower. It's very careful to look at each year. I mean, I'm not afraid, and CCP as well in general is not afraid of trying new things. We don't always get everything right. We never. I think it's just a case of that comes with any degree of experimentation. And year on year, it is a case of we change who the sponsors are for each year. We change some of the underlying formatting as well. I'm not always going to get it right. I try. The feedback from everybody, normally from AARs for every Alliance tournament, I actually go through and I listen and read to a lot of them and take notes in terms of what I might try in the future. There's some very interesting things of just general development plan for the future. I actually mentioned it in our CCP's just recently started doing our new Gridlocked series, which is like a podcast series of trying to introduce the AT a little bit more, breaking it down, because as you say, there is like a vast knowledge required at least to get into. Because if you just stumble by one of the tournament matches on Twitch, if you come in at the wrong time, you've just got a series of squares against a series of squares, and you're getting an epic commentary team trying to do their best to explain what's going on there. So there are things that behind the scenes that I've requested, and we're looking at trying to deliver in terms of like what we can do in terms of looking at how we can give something a little bit more technical to those that want it versus what would be like a good viewing experience as well. So there is plans for stuff like that in the future. And in terms of what we want to do between Thunderdome and Tranquility, absolutely. There's also a case in the future, I want to try and do more on Tranquility, but it's also having the confidence of the Alliance tournament is so grand in nature because of the prizes that are given out for the tournament, that people are willing to contribute a little bit more to the stakes are a little bit higher, so they're willing to contribute a little bit. Whereas some of the community run tournaments, it's always a case of like, essentially you're investing your time into those tournaments because they're over into Thunderdome. There's no subscription or anything required to go over there. It's just a case of whatever time is available to you. It's been on my mind that I'd like to do more as well on track, but it's also a case of I need to get that also underlying support of what else can I do other than like Alliance tournament ships. So it's also making sure that there's like allocation and a support network in place. The general development of tournaments is something that I'm looking at since joining CCP. It's been one of my goals, is just trying to see how I can it and seeing what new developments, what I can do to make it grow essentially as well. And I have grand plans for that. Like I have, believe it or not, I have like what I'd like to do in the next 5 years written down, and what I'd like to see, where I'd like to see tournaments go. But I'm also very conscious of the fact that, as you say, EVE tournaments are very niche in nature. So it's also a case of how I'm going to compete my event versus everything else that's currently planned in the development cycle. It's not a case of it's not important. It's just a case of what else am I going to also be competing with, but what's happening also at the same time, and then how's it prioritized against that. So it's also just a case of general like time development and time management as well. There's a lot involved in it. But that being said, you are right. There is grand plans in the future. We're going to get there one tournament at a time. Well, it's actually, I said actually last FanFest, we have just been developed a new tournament tool behind the scenes. It actually allows for simultaneous tournaments to now happen at the same time. Believe it or not, that was something that we couldn't do previously. It was always a case of whatever tournament was being played, you couldn't run another tournament while it was running. We now actually have the ability to simultaneous tournaments. So like we could actually have a tournament running the same time as the Alliance tournament if we wanted, which is a cool new thing that's happening as of now. Literally right after the Alliance tournament, I think it's quite a month later, there's a Astral Acquisitions run by a player called Dinkleberry, has organized a 3v3 tournament to be running. And again, we're likely to see, I think, I'm not confirming this, I think he has confirmed it, the Anger Games, I think, is also due to return around April, May next year as well, which is another community-run tournament. So I always love the community tournaments because the Alliance tournament has kind of established like a standard in terms of what a tournament not so much should look like, but like I vary the rules and don't go to extreme changes from year to year for the Alliance tournament, whereas a lot of the community tournaments can go absolutely wild with ideas, and invariably sometimes they're super cool, and they get introduced into the Alliance tournament. It's just great to see. Up with all the ideas, it's great to see how the community comes up with them and how we can integrate them into the Alliance tournament as well. Yeah.
And as far as my piece of like the fact that a lot of the scrimmages and stuff like that can all be done on Thunderdome free of cost pretty much helps me as running EVE Rookies, that I don't have to put aside the tens of billions of ISK to provide ships for a bunch of Nubros that might not even be able to sit in them. That I can make this kind of amazing thing happen where her players that are a month into the game can be flying max skilled battleships and see exactly how they fly and get constant feedback on it. That's something that I can't do anywhere else in EVE, and gives players an opportunity to play very differently than they could ever really play on Tranquility, which I think is a beautiful thing. I understand like finals and stuff like that could for sure take place on TQ more often, and that wouldn't interrupt my ability to run something like this again and in the future, but that's my thought on it.
I did have an actual final other thought. Similar to what RJ was saying, something I did internally last year. I actually did a little study on terms of what competitive play looks like in EVE Online, in terms of what our tournament scene looks like compared to what the rest of the tournament look like across the rest of the world in other games. It's also incredibly interesting when you look at the perspective of like the tick-based system that we have on EVE Online. It means that your reaction speed, whilst important, they don't have to be like, I'm going to be sitting in like this far away from my 240 hertz monitor to make sure my click goes through at the correct time. You don't have to worry about that in EVE, because it's you don't have to worry about it. It's just less of an issue in EVE because of just the way the tick rate exists, which also means that the general age demographic for a competitive EVE player is considerably different to the average age of a competitive sports player in other games around the world, which I found is a very interesting kind of study point of view, because we have people from around the world of extreme age ranges playing in the tournament, which is incredibly cool to see. You don't have an opportunity to do it in other games. Like you just couldn't.
I like the joke that when it comes to EVE compared to other games requires like an incredibly sharp wrist and mind. EVE just requires the brain and a single finger. And the brains are more.
I will say,
to be honest, people do it with their nose.
I will say that checking at the right time is important. There's a time at the beginning of the match when the tool unlocks and you can begin to move, and you'll be surprised at how many people fail to double click at the right moment and they sit still for about 30 seconds in the match. It's something to avoid if you're ever taking part.
A couple of questions from chat. That sounds like exactly the kind of thing I would do. We've got a couple of questions from chat. So Victor says he's still pretty young as an EVE player, just about short of 3 months. He comes from a huge esports background here in Iceland. Has there ever been any ideas of doing official tournament series, which span the season, so to speak, like League of Legends?
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want to grab. I want to grab this one because this is kind of funny because this is attempted once, but not directly by CCP initially. The 5v5 scrims
more than once.
Yeah, but that's the closest one I can remember, and we all learned exactly why this does not really work.
Don't die right now.
I'm trying, but I gotta talk, and that also makes me want to die. Yeah, we tried something similar with the 5v5 scrims, doing like, was it like a pseudo weekly or monthly? I think it was a series of matches with same teams and whatnot. And while everyone loved it for a bit, it does. If you're doing the same thing over and over, it does tend to grind. Which is why each tournament you see over the year is a different kind of tournament. There's differences in rules, differences in ships you can bring, so difference in numbers: 5 players, 7 players, 10 players. It gives it more life and it allows people to enjoy it a bit more, because if you're doing the same match over and over and over for every month, people did get burnt out pretty quick, and that was during COVID.
Yeah, we back in the day, the group that I still run, I guess, but we're kind of dormant. EVNT, about 10 years ago now, we did EVNT Championship, and we did 4 seasons. We did, I think each season was around about, say, 10 weeks long. Any of you guys involved, or is it just me? I think it might have just been me. So yeah, it was around about 10 to 12 weeks long, and it took a lot of stamina from volunteers in terms of producing that content. It was kind of crazy. We did matches every Sunday for around 2 to 3 hours. I really loved the format. The competitors, like the fact that it ran for 4 seasons, was evidence that people were watching it and enjoying it. But yeah, it took a lot of stamina and commitment from both the players and the staff in terms to keep running. So I think I'm sort of with Wingnut in that, like, having smaller individual tournaments that people can sign in for, and they can skip the tournament if they've got too much commitment, time, stuff going on, is a better approach to a game of the scale of like EVE Online. I'm a big kind of, like, I used to be a big League of Legends nerd as well, and I had the similar vision to Victor there. So that's why I kind of put a lot of time and energy into producing it, and I'm proud of what we did, but it wasn't quite a right fit for the EVE Online community, I think. And so yeah, it would be cool to see again, but someone try it. I'd love to support that if someone wants to try that as a volunteer group to set it up. But yeah, I think having like a double elimination tournament once or twice a month would be like the optimal for me, I think, in terms of like what the tournament community could support, probably.
I think the sort of happy medium on that aspect might be what Jin tries to do for the small tournaments like Endgames, which is his sort of solo queue thing, where you can turn up at a time. He says, right, we're just going to get as many people as we can online at this time. You all show up, and then you get assigned teams, and you know, as a team, you might have some preset comps to choose from, or I'm not sure exactly on how he's done it in the past, how he's going to do it in the future, but it sort of tries to formalize the process into having people online at the same time and having sort of a pseudo kind of almost matchmaking type system.
Always late for the match. Scrims with a similar thing. You could drop in, open scrim, you get put into a team. Even if you don't know what the hell you're doing, you have max skill character as well, as you can use it. And they would just, when someone on your team is going to be a smart guy, he's going to give you a fit for the ship you're using. Off you go. Like, anyone could join. I could join. I'd never been in the team. I've done solo PvP for 5 years. I've never been in a play tournament team. I had no clue what the bloody hell was going on. Still killed 3 guys.
So I'm hoping we get something like that back. I want open 5v5s back, please.
Thing on that too is I think a lot of the things that are getting mentioned here is a less serious scene going on, and that's why we also have player run tournaments happening. And it's also like mentioned, if you want to run one, talk to him. There's definitely some room for it. But I think if you ask a lot of like AT veteran pilots or people who are really committed to the AT, one of the best things you can do is win the AT. One of the next best things is when it ends. The grind is very hard, and I think a lot of people just vanish for a few weeks. It's a lot harder when you really go competitive and have like 5 plus 2 hour, 3 hour scrims a week, and you're dedicating, hours outside of that to theory, and especially also with the crew of volunteers. A lot of these people volunteer to help small tournaments, not expecting anything in return, and you do have to dedicate, a lot of time to that, multiple weekends, multiple, 4 hour blocks to that. And I think that's where the bigger issue is when it's more casual, you might get more people interested because they don't feel like they have to put everything on the line. They can just enjoy themselves and relax a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's just the time investment. I think a lot of the time, both from the teams and from the volunteers' perspective, in terms of if you're putting on a broadcast, to some extent it's kind of expected, but also it's a case of I don't think everything necessarily has to be broadcast. Sometimes just getting to the finals is just an element that could be broadcast. In terms of doing it for the Alliance tournament specifically, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't considered it in the past. I was looking at it as a way to try and at the moment we obviously have the feeders tournament as a way to take an unknown number of people down to a known number of people, so the run the Alliance tournament. Previously, it was just a case of we'd have the previous tournament winners and then silent bid entries, which I just hated because you didn't earn your way into the tournament, so you could end up with a real not so great list of teams, is the way I'll probably phrase that. I just didn't feel like it was a way that delivered the best kind of experience for both those playing in the tournament and those potentially watching it, because you could end up with a team with huge amounts of veterancy versus a team that just happened to be very rich and not very involved in terms of their PvP abilities. The problem I always had with having like a league system, I wanted to, when I was originally thinking about it, is because obviously time zones are very much an issue as well for both people playing and the actual volunteering side of it. So it's like, do I have like a EU time zone one? Do I have a like Australian time zone one? Do I have a US centric time zone one? And trying to figure out like across the course of time, do I have all those different time zones as the like contribution way of getting into the tournament? But then obviously the main Alliance tournament was always going to be on European, well, normally to early US prime time. So it was a challenging one to try and figure out. It's just, I'm not saying it will never happen. It was just a case of, I think it's also a case of, I don't want to have like a really weird format so that it's miles different from what you're actually going to experience in the Alliance, which I think is where the community tournaments come in really well. It's just a case of trying something different that may not be the Alliance tournament, that just might be fun. Like, it's just, I want to try something because I'm not going to take it super seriously. I'm not going to invest a huge amount of time. I just want to go PvP and have some fun. And the community tournaments, I think are delivering those. And at the moment, the cadence for them seems to be like handleable by a lot of people in terms of they don't get burnt out from going straight from one tournament to the next. So like I say, we've got a 3v3 tournament happening right after the Alliance tournament. Chances are a lot of the teams that are in the Alliance tournament may not enter it because they just want to like chill out for a little bit after the intensiveness of the Alliance tournament. But we may get newer crowds that haven't actually entered tournaments, may want to go join it, see what it's like, and go from there.
It also gives those teams who may have taken place in the Alliance tournament a more relaxed opportunity to, if you may have got hard in the Alliance tournament, maybe you bow out, but maybe you just say, right, we're just going to show up on the day and have fun, which is, I mean, that's what I'm considering doing with a couple of people in my court. See if I can get a couple of people together. It also provides an opportunity for sort of getting into commentary, if that's something you'd be interested in doing. just sort of segue onto that, I think, because that was part of, I guess, the discussion of sort of background of Alliance tournament and the sort of running of the production side. I think I got into commentary by I was interested in it. I loved watching the AT, so I just sort of I think I asked CCP Falcon, I think it was at the time. I don't think he responded, so I just went ahead and did it anyway. I just copied their Twitch stream onto my monitor and talked over it, muted their stream and just talked over it. And then after a couple matches, I actually got a DM from CCP Swift saying, "Hey, I kind of like it, so you should keep going." So I kept going. Not saying that's like the official pathway into like tournament commentary. Now there's probably better ways of doing it, such as this kind of smaller tournament thing where people like Soft, who run the end games, are very, very open to having people try their hand and see if they like it and have a go.
Yeah, when we open up the commentary, or we actually just call it talent now, because it's a case of, obviously, as RJ mentioned earlier, we also have observers join us. We normally take we have like little thresholds of like, look, we'll open up the invitations to everybody, and then they'll submit an application to, hey, I want to join the talent team this year. We have like a little minimum threshold in terms of, hey, if you put in at least some effort to this application, and then we'll normally go for interviews. If you have done a previous tournament, such as Basil says, if you've done some community tournaments, so you've done at least some commentary, some hosting, or you've done any kind of camera work, it always helps in terms of when we're trying to make a final decision. We had a huge amount of applicants this year, and whittling down to those like final few is always very tough. Obviously, we don't have an unlimited budget, so it's always a case of we try and pick and choose who the final few are coming out to Iceland for covering the main tournament. But it's great if you have previous experience, because like it just adds value to your submission essentially.
It can also move quickly as well, because I think Novaterra Ren, for example, who's commentating in Iceland this year, I think his only previous experience was doing Captain's Cup earlier this year. I don't think he'd done anything before that. So, you can get into it fairly low stakes, fairly easily, and progress pretty quickly if you keep at it.
Yeah, he impressed a
He did
lot.
the 18 last year.
He did defeat it. Getting
Yeah, he took Peters last year. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That also helps like feeders too is somewhat separated. So like Sales does bring that extra person or two on so that they could like have the experience and see what's going on, just to be in prep for next year if it's something you really like. And you could find out on your end if you like it or don't. And he could find out on his end if it's working out or not. And you get feedback from, the professionals here that want to help.
I remember my entry and doing commentary about analysis was that I did it in a Discord call with some of my friends, and then I'm like, hey, maybe I could do it on the stream, and they like DM'd Soft, and he was like, yes, please, and I did it the next day or the next weekend.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
Sorry.
No, go on.
For me, how I got in was the 5v5 scrims. They just needed anyone who could just use their bloody voice. I just went, fuck it, why not? I've done like 4 years of streaming, let's give it a go. And yeah, that was it. Like, sometimes all you need to do is just be there and be willing to give it a try. And hey, if you're good, people like you keep going.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the element. I was going to say it's just the ability to talk is not something that everybody has the ability to do. Kind of funny when people... Yeah, happening. The amount of times I've seen in the past where people have said, "Hey, like I could do better than this." They're extending the opportunity to come on and do some commentary, and then the moment they delivered a match, they're like, just the brain just immediately stops functioning. So it's one of those moments of like just the ability to talk to everybody and have some degree of like knowledge about what's happening in front of you, and talking about it is a very like core skill to have.
And I always try and remind commentators as well, like you're not there just to say what's happening on grid. That's incredibly boring. Anyone can do that, right? Well, not anyone, but that's kind of like, you need to tell a story, you need to involve narrative, you need to know, it's as cheesy as it sounds, we all know the structure of how to write a story. There's a beginning, a middle, and end, right? And there's a beginning of a match, middle of a match, and an end of a match. There's a beginning of a play, there's a middle of a play, and there's an end of a play. in terms of like maneuvers on grid as well. And so like, just being able to construct your sentences in such a way that you lead the viewer through the match in an exciting way, that's what takes skill and practice. And you can practice that. Doesn't have to be Eve, like I think some of our best commentators have come from having backgrounds in commentating kind of amateur sports, college football, whatever. I think as I don't like dock someone, but I think there's one person on this panel who's definitely had experience doing that. It really shines through in their commentary. So I think like if you are interested in Elon commentating for EVE Online, it's something you set your target on and passionate about. There isn't a huge number of EVE Online matches to commentate out there, and so getting involved in commentating your local football school, like school or whatever football, can actually really help develop those skills needed to be able to tell a story in the moment. So I always recommend people do that as well if they really want to grow their skills. But yeah, having a lot of depth of knowledge as well and being able to weave that in is really important. Like our best commentators, I think, have fantastic memories for names, for previous plays, and being able to weave that in as well viewers really appreciate that. I think they appreciate that context and that knowledge rather than just someone excitedly yelling about what's happening on grid. And because a lot of EVE Online matches, believe it or not, are quite boring. And so finding ways, when we interview talent, we like to pick boring matches in particular sometimes to see how people can fill the dead air, honestly, because there's a lot of it a lot of the time. And there's like, when Hydra and Vidra are doing like Falcon Widow things against each other for 9 straight minutes, and it might be exciting for the hardcore EVE that practice a ton, right? They can see the E-War effects going against each other and the teams trying to tip each other off balance. But for the casual viewer, it's 9 minutes of nothing. And so how to make that exciting is a really important skill.
Mine is a tug rope.
Right.
I'll say as quickly as well as it's not just about like saying what's happening, because as I said, that's just kind of boring. Explaining how it happened and why it's happening. Getting the information of like what's exactly happening here, why this is a good or bad thing. That's where you can start like really doubling down on your words without even saying much different, to be honest. Okay, hey, the logic is down there for this team that has no more sustain. It's going to die. It better start killing things.
It's not only that, it's also talking to your actual fellow commentator, being able to bounce backwards and forwards between the two of you and talking about what's going on is also a super critical skill.
Chemistry is real.
Yeah, it's down to the planning as well a little bit. We try this out during the feeders of trying out different pairs of people to see how it works out and find good combinations. It is part and parcel of the process.
Don't worry, next year just put me with Winged Out. We love each other. It worked great.
I hate to be an arsehole. I don't remember. What were you like? I don't remember. Bring up what match I was in, like commentating. I don't remember. I've done this for so long. I can usually remember like everything I'm doing, whether I like it or not like them. Like, okay, this guy's a bit better to work with. The one type requires a bit more effort. I legitimately have no fucking memory, and that's starting to worry me.
I think also Wignet has this problem that I'm not sure if he's figured it out yet, but whenever I'm doing the scheduling for the talent, like he may notice by now, I don't know if he's worked it out yet, but I tend to put in with a lot of the new people because he's so
I know.
I know. Fantastic. Responding to new people and matching their level in terms of energy and stuff. And one of the fantastic things I love about Wingnet is that he's really, really good at reading the person he's casting with, even if you've never done it with them before. So yeah, it's not a surprise to me that you don't remember everyone you cast with because I put you with all new people.
I gotta say, like 99% of people I've been with, I've liked for sure. There's only been maybe at the very most, maybe one person which didn't quite fit. And that wasn't because they were a bad person or a bad commentator. Just we did not fit. Well, I like that question.
Yeah, should we do a couple more questions from chat? I think the next one that we had was from Spanky, which is how has the wider CCP responded to the enthusiasm for the AT since it's been back? Are we beating your expectations as players/audience?
I mean, I think the simple one I can say to that weren't, you wouldn't have any more Alliance tournaments. Is the reality of it. No, I mean, in grander schemes, there's evolving support for it internally. It's actually been super nice. I will admit, the first couple of tournaments, I was very much a case of like, I would run them and then reach out to the rest of the CCPers in terms of trying to get support for it. But as time's gone on now, it's more of a case of I have a team of people that will helping me out. If you're a competitor, you probably would have, like, for example, been speaking to CCP Lumi, or you would have also had like a majority of people from the community team reach out to you at some point. Just because it's a case now of more and more people are starting to get more involved with it. More knowledge about it internally has also been really helpful in just people saying, hey, would this be something cool we could do for the Alliance tournament? I mean, for example, last year when we had the tournament in the middle of the CCP here in Reykjavik, and we're doing it again this time round, whereas previously, we've been over in Nottingham. Not that that's not cool. It's just a case of when we have the opportunity to do it in the middle of the office, because we have that much internal support now, it's super cool. And as time's gone on, we've also ended up with like more prizes being added to the pool. We've got with sponsors. So, for example, there's a competition, for example, going on at the moment for predictions brackets. So if you go over to Challenge and you throw in a prediction for who you think might win the tournament, if you happen to be the top of the tournament, you can win a AMD graphics card supplied by AMD. We've got various Plex prizes in there as well, because we've had the nod for doing stuff like that. We've ended up with an ultra cool Shattered Paradigm skin range that's come out, which is, again, through support of the tournament. It's just really great to see the kind of evolution and support internally for just growing the tournaments. I ended up, the first couple of years, I was working on the programming behind the scenes for the tool. I actually now have a dedicated guy who's helping me out with the tournament tool engineering work as well. So that's why we now have the new iteration of this tournament tool that's able to run multiple tournaments at once, because we've had that additional support internally. Like one of the next things I want on my list, year on year, I'm going to be the one that has to set up arenas. Like one of the next goals is to try and get like a deployable arena, like a pop-up arena that we can give to players, where it just puts down an arena and they can start practicing, playing, whatever they want to do. So it has some degree of basic controls. It's just, without the support internally for that, it just wouldn't happen. It would just be a case of you would end up with nothing, or you would end up with just a very minimal Alliance tournament iteration each year. But no, the support has been growing year on year, both thanks to the community as well. The community itself has also been growing, and say the tournament community, whilst it can be very critical of people at times, is actually, by and large, actually incredibly supportive. If somebody wants to fire up a new community tournament, there's always people there. And in terms of criticism from like how you performed, like again, teams are always actually willing to give feedback, like how people can improve. It's phenomenal to see.
Nice. Another question from chat. Serena asks, do you think you have the technical commentator and the more flavorful commentator in matches?
Yes and no. Like that's a general theme that I think exists in a lot of competitive esports events. That's generally the combination. We don't necessarily always have that in Eve. It's like I don't like using the terms entirely, because I think we absolutely have commentators that are both technically minded and very like entertaining to also speak to. We also have those that are just straight up great technical breakdown analysts, which normally end up on the desk as well. Some of which are here as well, but they're also more than capable of doing commentary well. I think don't get me wrong, I think RJ said it perfectly earlier. I think that entertainment value each of the commentators and analysts have, it's just pairings of like, hey, who's really good with talking with this other person? Like who communicates really well with them, who works really well with them. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be like that combination of people that one is super technical and one to be super entertaining. We just figure out what works and go from there, really.
Yeah, I also kind of think, because this, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things I have, obviously, I've hired a lot of people to do commentating in the past, and a thing that often comes this is, well, I'm the action person. I'm the analysis person. I don't need the action skills. I don't need to be the colourful language person, because I'm the one who's going to really tell players.
And then everyone falls asleep.
Because I'm the expert in the room, and I'm like, okay, that's fine if I don't have enough on the day. I'll take you, but I'll take someone who can do both over you anytime once. So you should be able to do both. Like if you take, I think, was it 2-3 years ago? Was it Bazza and BBP doing a final? Did you guys do a final together?
I think I did it with Sphere in 2018, and then Wingman. I can't remember 19, I think.
Okay, yeah, I think like BVP and whoever did it with him, I think it was at 1817 or something. That was such a fantastic combo, and like I think it was one of my favorite. It sticks out in my memory as like, oh yeah, that was like the best combo that I can think of. So you should have claimed that one. But yeah, like I remember thinking
that was great.
I remember thinking at the time, like, holy shit, like these both are working so brilliantly together that they just come completely flowing between the roles like the whole time for the whole best of 5 series. And one of them will slow down and tell story, and then one of them will pick up the action, and they could both interchange and do it perfectly. So yes, you can, like a lot of esports do kind of do that kind of more kind of hype person analyst, but I think in an EVE Online match, it's not like a Counter-Strike round where there's a pace every single time. Even like matches are pretty random, and they can go all over the place really quickly, and they can go from really, really boring to really exciting, and then just stay exciting for 10 minutes. And so like you need a breather somewhere. So it's kind of like, yeah, so it's kind of an interesting one. Like as you said, getting two people that vibe with each other really well is really good. Sorry, Chad, you can see.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also has to do with like just personalities and working with someone that you vibe with. Like sometimes people give like cues without giving a cue. Like they're not set up cues. You know what they're going to end. You know when they have more to say. You know when they have something on that moment that you might not have. Let them talk and how to bounce with that. Another big thing on like desk versus like analyst, versus commentary. A lot of the more people who've been in the scene longer end up on the desk hosting and doing analyst type work because they've been around the scene and seen things longer. But there's also the personal preference. Like there's people who don't like being on the desk. They'd rather be commentating. They'd rather, give the energy there and see what's going on and react than like break down some of the stuff that might be a little more boring for them, versus other people who really have the EVE knowledge and understanding, like being able to use that knowledge and present it in a way that everyone can understand.
And going back to what Bay mentioned about people who can hand it off to the next person cleanly, if you ever want to practice that, see someone who knows what they're doing, watch CCP Overload at any commentary he does. The man almost like structures his voice. You can hear him get ready to give it to you. So no matter how good or bad you are at commentary, you can see it coming. And once that happens, like you can start doing it basically with anyone. You can make anyone shine. Like that man can make a turd shine.
I just checked, it was you, Bazza.
Oh, hell yeah. I'll take it. Thanks, man.
Okay, we've been going for an hour and a half, so I'm going to do a call out for any final questions. In the meantime, if we have any new players who perhaps haven't watched the AT before or anything like that, what advice or thoughts do you guys have for those people?
Just get into it. There's a lot of ways into it, but what I'm running is one of them. A lot of teams will take complete noobros just because they want more people that'll show up consistently. If you show up consistently, you will very, very quickly not be a noobro anymore. You get so much experience in scrims that you can pick up and play and get to the level that you need to be to run in the tournament within one tournament, honestly. Like, it's not as hard as people say it is. You do a lot of practice.
The advice I give new players the most of EVE is basically amplified in the AT. Be there try your damn hardest, ask all the questions, and if you're always there, you're gonna be in the team. And also, it doesn't matter if you've got low skill points. A tier 1 new bro in a Griffin has literally won matches before. You can do amazing things if you learn and practice. And with the team, if you're willing to listen to your team and take their criticism and advice, mate, you could be a star in a year, like legit. Also, when it comes to the sort of cost of running an Alliance tournament team, of the Plex entry, trying a sort of competitive team, to Plex entry, to flagships, to comps, modules, all the stuff that you need, implants. If you've got a stellar pilot who is good at the game but has a couple million SP and is lacking in some skills, it's pretty much a rounding error on your team's cost to bump their skills up to par. And there's also obviously a lot of very established veteran players. A lot of teams run off sort of team donations, in the hope that they'll make a return on their donations when they win prizes and whatnot, but also often in the expectation that they won't and they're doing it for fun. And a lot of those veteran players are often more than happy to basically just fund someone else to get up to par on their team. So getting into it in general, I think there are a lot of opportunities to get into it nowadays in terms of the Eve rookie scrims that Kevin's running, which I think are really, really brilliant. Stuff like the lower stakes tournaments, like the Anchor Games, the 3v3 tournaments, and also just joining established teams. I would cautiously advise against just jumping straight in without knowing what you're doing in terms of like forming your own team, because people have been playing this game for a long time. There's a lot of people who know what they're doing. The overall skill level in the tournament is very, very high. So I would advise anybody who wants to get stuck into it to sort of try and follow somebody else's lead first. And you'll sort of learn more that way than sort of jumping in head first and getting your ass handed to you by people who've been playing for a lot longer with a lot more skill points, a lot more money, a lot more experience, etc. But there's, like the others have said, there's always people looking for people who'll turn up to scrims, put in the effort, put in the time, and want to play.
Yeah, on Baz's note too, like joining a team, it isn't fully about your SP. It isn't fully about your ability to click buttons better than somebody else. Some of that does have to go into it, but like the people who ask questions, show up, show commitment, and want to learn things, you might not be the starter this coming year. You might not be their go-to guy, but the more you do that and the more you want to learn, I would say scrims and AT like presence of people who know what they're doing is the best place to just be better at Eve and learn like things you won't learn outside of this area.
I was just thinking of a story that I heard for this year's tournament. Actually, a guy called Tackleman, who ended up joining one of the teams, who was a brand new player, and ended up being an absolute epic player. It's just one of those things of until you go and try it, no, you think you're going to be limited to just doing one particular thing. It's also just a case of until you try it. Kind of touching on Chad's point, it's just having the right attitude, I think, a lot of the time, of just like understanding that people here are maybe giving you feedback, critical feedback on the way that you're playing, but it's not like in a hateful way. It's just there to try and help you improve into what you want to try, or what you want to try and achieve both as a team and as a player. A lot of the tournament teams come down to like roles and responsibilities. So it's normally, you're assigned to potentially be doing something in particular. So it's just understanding how you're going to be growing in that particular role and function. And then maybe if you don't like it, you end up trying something in terms of what the team is expecting of you. Over on the EVE Online Discord, we have a tournament announcements channel where basically if I know of any upcoming tournaments, both community run or just what we're planning from CCP's side, and then tournament announcements channel can link to other Discords as well. Again, I just throw in whenever something else is coming out. Tournament general chat as well. Normally we'll be talking in there, whether it be about the Alliance tournament or if I've just announced something. Usually, discussions following that particular announcement would normally follow in there as well. Organizers for other tournaments are normally in there. There's a couple of other Discords out there that are already created from, for example, the Anger Games one, which is essentially just a large community now of just both players of tournaments and organizers of tournaments. So even if you're looking at potentially wanting to run a tournament, you're always welcome to come speak to me. I'll also, give you names of individuals in the community who be, good points of contact in terms of if you're trying to figure out what structure, what you have an idea roughly of what you want, they might be able to say, hey, look, we've tried that previously, but here's the recommendation for something you might want to try. The great thing is about the fact that not every tournament has to be run on Tranquility. Like in the future, like to have more tournaments on Tranquility, but the advantage of them, us having Thunderdome, is the fact that we can have tournaments that are essentially like no real associated cost. You don't have to have max skills because you're just given a max skilled character when you go onto Thunderdome. So your ability and your attitude are the kind of two things having to bring to each match, not having to worry about anything else. And I think that's something I want to try and continue with for as long as I can.
And I think just to add in, for anyone interested in getting involved in tournaments, whether that's participating or just learning how when you're watching, I think we do try and engage with the Twitch chat, and I think there's also the official tournament chats on the official Discord, and they're great places to put questions. The Twitch chat, probably best if you put your question there while the stream is going, but the tournament channel on the Discord is something that I think a lot of tournament veterans kind of check in on frequently. So if you do want to get involved, it's a good place to just go to get a general idea about meta or what's important or why things are done or different target priorities, all the kind of bits and pieces that may not come easily based on just looking at the tournament scene.
Okay, we've got one more question in chat, and I guess this will probably be the last question. So Orion asks, is there anything that you would like to see changed in the AT or added to it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I want to see Boosters come in there. Let's go. The chaos reign.
For a long time, something I'd love to do, and when Zealous gets a ton of time to help me do it, I would love to do a format which doesn't just last 10 minutes. Because 10 minutes is it's the length of a small gang skirmish, sure, which is kind of what it reflects. But there's so many other types of PvP in EVE. I was last week I was in a dread battle that lasted about 2-3 hours from start to finish. That was epic. And whilst organized play of 1,000 players might be a little bit much, I feel like this might be a middle ground somewhere of like 50 versus 50. Like how can we inject some sort of objective into a structured EVE Online play? And I've dabbled and experimented in the past, but it would take a little bit more. When my social credit with the community was higher and I could actually get enough people together to do it, I definitely feel like Zeus has got a lot of people that respect it at the moment and could experiment and play with that a little bit. So do we have like a skyhook or something like that where one team has to keep it alive for an hour and the other team has to destroy it? And is reshipping available, that kind of thing? Can teams respawn? And like it could be like a 50 versus 50 kind of thing. Like I feel that there's a lot of mileage there to really open the appeal of organized PvP play in EVE to a wider audience of people who aren't just interested in that kind of small gang skirmish kind of style of PvP. It endlessly fascinates me, and why I've played the game for God knows how many years, is how humans can coordinate in this game to achieve just such incredible levels of teamwork. And it would be lovely to see some sort of organized play around that on a slightly larger scale as opposed to just a 10v10.
I was going to say, just before somebody else jumps in on that one, I think for the Alliance tournament, I don't think it would change much from around a 10v10 format in the future. I think it'll probably, don't get me wrong, there's a possibility of numbers maybe going up 1 or 2, but it's just more of a case of, I think we've ended up with like a standardized format now that I don't want it to be like, hey, you remember when you won the Alliance tournament 25 and it was that special one that they had unique thing for, and then they changed the year. I don't want that. That being said, what I would actually love to do is, because the Alliance tournament has been competitive PvP for so long, I want to try something that isn't just competitive, but maybe competitive PvE or competitive PvE PvP, or where there's like a PvE objective but requires PvP kind of combat elements to it as well. I'd love to do an endurance mining event maybe at some point as well. But in the like grand scheme of the future, one of the things I'd love to do is like the Alliance tournament has established itself as like the PvP thing each year, to try and establish a PvE or PvEVP thing each year as well. That could be a reoccurring event that also, you know, gives you opportunities to do something that isn't just the PvP tactically minded and theory crafters, to give them the opportunity to try something else. Like there's a loads of, like, we know EVE Online is aiming this like 20 games in a trench coat. There's loads of other elements of EVE Online that we could absolutely introduce in terms of a competitive element. And that's something I want to try in the future.
We need to make golf happen, okay, Zalis?
No, bring
Hell
back
yeah.
the industrial bowl. I think
I mean, one of the ones
I was just
Oh.
one thing else didn't touch on that I think like a lot of people have mentioned seeing in the future is the balancing of Alliance tournament ships coming back into the AT, as well as like the balancing of flagships where there's like diversity in them, and like these AT ships are used again without being too powerful, they're too limited, and like that's been a very big discussion lately. And like I think like CCP is in the process of trying to get it balanced, but it's a very like hard thing to balance.
Yeah, that's just something I've been super conscious of for a very long time. Don't get me wrong, the viewing experience of seeing an AT ship in the tournament and like the cost associated with that and potentially dying in a match is like real great viewing experience. But at the same time, if you're a new team and you want to get into the tournament, the prospect of going, hey, you may have to this 900 billion-isk ship to actually be relatively competitive is just like unreasonable. So I want there to be some degree of like balance between like bringing in the prospect of potentially bringing an AT ship or a flagship, but I just need to figure out what one looks like.
I think Zealous is taking the right approach and sort of gradually easing it in, but I don't think there's any sort of way to accelerate that process inherently. I think it has to be a gradual sort of year-on-year thing, or else you may well end up with, as you like the sort of worst case scenario of what you were just saying, of a team that tries to take part and just gets wallet slapped by a team. One of my worst memories of AT, I think it was AT14, maybe. I think it might have been one of my first years actually participating. And we went up again. I remember we went up against NC Dot, and we thought, okay, we know they have Rubisage the previous year. We're just little old snuffed out, or snuff box at the time probably. We're gonna hope they don't field it, so they're gonna ban Guardian and Eros and see what they do. And then they brought the Rubisu, and it's like, well, you know, we just lose by default because the ship is mega powerful. And that felt really bad. So I think Zealous is taking the right approach in trying to sort of avoid that occurrence of you know, the other team has a really big wallet and just slaps you with it, and take a gradual approach. But obviously, then it has to be slow and over multiple years. It can't just be done in one go.
One of the things that the question really brought to mind is I don't know how many people were playing back then, but the like Titanomachy, I can't remember the exact name or how to pronounce it, but essentially it was like a free-for-all type event where you could make as many kind of in tournament relationships as you wanted to over the course of the event. It was a single event, and you would just pick up ships from space. There would be little events that go on throughout, like a convoy enters the region and you end up all converging on it to try and get better gear, to use an MTU to kind of like swap out modules on your ship. I think having events like that, it could be a team-based event where, you know, 3 people go in together, you all have to go find your ships and equipment, and you're against other teams, and you can kind of all pair up and all that kind of stuff. Could be good, and it works on the foundations of things that have come before. So we know that it is possible. I think it was set up by players, so they had to actually go around and drop things off. Might be a little bit easier for CCP to kind of put everything together. But there's different formats that we can use, I think, to make things interesting, even if they are one-off events.
I remember I took part in one of those events. They bought a Nightmare really early. I got really lucky and found a Nightmare and fitted it out. And even though it had like the wrong guns and stuff on it, like I still farmed like crazy. It was great. I still got a prize I won from it. Great. It was a really fun event. I'd love to bring that back.
I think Brave hosted one of those like after that, like a much smaller scale with like 3 bosses. And if I remember correctly, the match was won by a battleship using rapid light missile launchers.
Yeah,
Because all
that
ships
sounds
like
It
random
would be interesting for a tournament that involves more of the like warping around and trying to get in-game games and stuff like that incorporated into it versus where AT is just you landed where you are, now you are fighting there in an arena. Would be interesting.
have to be a tournament that gives points to kills, not to survival.
Yeah, I think the tournament, at least the historic one that I'm talking about, gave points to, or had different rewards for longest survived, most kills. I think there are a few other categories like most ships used or something like that. So there can be fun rewards for approaching the game in different ways, you know. So it suits different play styles in that way. So yeah, I don't know. But a potential idea to be explored later on.
I dropped the link for that previous one over in
Oh, Thea
I
back
just
it up.
aged me and Ellis. We're linking that. I just saw the age on it. Oh my god. Right?
9 years.
You.
Oh,
No. I just gave 10 rings in 0 seconds. I hate you.
Okay, guys, I think we are probably all out of questions. So I will go ahead and draw this to a close. I would just like to say a massive thank you to all of our panelists tonight. It's been really interesting. It's been a really incredible kickoff to our series of panels, and really good to hear from you guys what goes into the background and making the AT happen, and how much passion and teamwork goes on behind the scenes. Just as a reminder to everyone, this is the first of our 3 main panels. Next up on Wednesday, we have that, which is the 22nd, we have a panel on what it's like to fly in the Alliance tournament. So that's going to feature pilots from past tournaments and people who've been eliminated this year to talk about what it's like to actually fly in one. And then we have, after the AT next weekend, we have on the 1st of November, we have a post-AT debrief, which is where people who are flying this year are going to be reflecting back on this year's tournament, showing off some of the tools they used to prepare, and just kind of giving us the inside scoop of this year's tournament. And then also don't forget that next weekend, from Friday through Sunday, we're going to be hosting Alliance Tournament watch parties here in the EVV Discord. And everyone's welcome to drop in, whether you are a first-time AT viewer, whether you are a tournament veteran. If you want to hang out, ask questions, answer questions, and just kind of enjoy the matches together. So panelists, you are warmly invited as well if you want to pop in and share any of your thoughts while we watch. But yeah, thanks again to everyone who has come along and everyone who's asked questions, all the panelists. And thank you. Look forward to seeing you all on our next session.
Thank you for putting this together and for looking after us as well.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. I'm going to go die now.
See ya.
I don't do that.